Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your friend James Shaw. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You know, we do this every week. Talk to people who are doing elite things so that you can become elite yourself. You can make the business easier. You can take advantage of the opportunity that today's market presents. And so we're going to do that today as we talk with Will. Will, what's going on?
Nothing much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for doing it. Tell us who you are and where you are, a little bit about your business, and then we're going to talk about how you have figured out your numbers, which is a big thing a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, Will Van Wickler. I'm based out of Portland, Maine. I'm a 23-year-old solo agent. Been in this business a little bit over 4 years and operate in the best state on earth, Maine.
Oh, that's exciting. And you don't just dabble. You've got a really, really good business.
Yep, we're on track to close 50 million this year with a part-time virtual assistant and a pay-per-deal transaction coordinator. Last year was my first full year in the business. Dropped out of college the year before, halfway through the year, and closed 40 million for a million in GCI.
Good for you. Well, I'm proud of you, and I'm honored that you would take some time to talk with us about it. Most of the time when I meet agents, they are just kind of figuring it out. They're whoever they run into, they try to sell them a house. They're doing a little bit of stuff with their database. They're dabbling in different things here and there. And I go and I pull out my little MREA book, all right, and I talk about, and I go to page 130, 130, 131, and 132. And on page 132, it says you got to focus on your conversion rates. How many appointments can you convert into agreements and then convert into sales will determine how much income you'll actually get. You have figured out conversion rates. This is a thing that's really important to you. I'm just curious at first, why did you even decide to start paying attention?
Yeah, so for me, I just figured out early on because of my age and kind of how I look young. I'm statistically going to have less opportunity than an agent that goes into this business 35, 45, kids in the schools, all this kind of stuff. So I thought, hey, I have less opportunity. So I need to nail every single opportunity I get. And I just wanted to make more money with less work. I saw the average agent kind of treated this like a hobby, not a job. They'd go on 5 listing appointments, only get one. I wanted to go on 5 and get 6, get a referral from a seller that I'm working with and sign every single appointment I go on just to make my hourly rate higher.
Now, I think you were like most agents to start, where you weren't really paying attention to the numbers. So, what was it that caused you to start to pay attention to it?
Yeah, so it's honestly my first year in the business. I made about $100,000 part time, going to college, and I was like, okay, this is cool, and it was a ton of work, open houses, door knocking, all this crazy real estate stuff. Then the second year, I was having a pretty good year in real estate. I made $200,000, and I thought, okay, I'm going to pause on college, and if I did that last year and treated this actually like a job, what could I do? So I just set out the next year, which was last year, my first full year in the business. I'm going to treat this like a job. I'm going to track every single activity I do. And then I'm going to master any objections I get so I can up my conversion and ultimately make more money, which is exactly what I did. I went from kind of just doing this business, going everywhere, doing everything, randomly talking to people, to knowing my numbers so well that I know every single listing appointment I go on, if I don't sign it, it was up to me and something I could have fixed on my side.
Okay, so this is a big leap and one that people struggle with, to go from, like you said, kind of making it up as you go and doing everything and seeing what works, to getting purposeful about finding out what's actually working and then focusing more on that. So I want to learn from you, when you decided to sit down and start tracking, what did you do? This is a place where people struggle. They go, I know I got to track my stuff, but I don't even know how to do it. So tell me what you did.
Yeah, well, the first thing I did is I hired a maps coach, and they are really the catalyst for me tracking and my business exploding. Because every single week, my original coach, Ariel, wanted to know, what the heck were you doing? And if you got results, how did you get them? And now my coach, Aaron Hurd, wants to even dive deeper into what's my days on market, all that kind of stuff. So early on, the first thing was, how many appointments did you set? How many appointments did you keep? How many appointments did you sign? And out of those appointments, did you sell them a house? And where was the source? We were not focused on the calls I was making or the dials or how many people were in the database, because I knew I could do that and I was doing the work. It was the conversion details. And even further, where was the business even coming from? And then we doubled down on those sources and went even deeper into that conversation.
Okay, that's great. That's straight out of Shift, by the way. Gary says go figure out your top sources and double down on those. So you did that. You got great guidance from two absolutely fantastic maps coaches. Was accountability around the numbers a big reason as to why you even started paying attention?
That's the only reason I did it. And I really didn't even know. They didn't teach me any of this in real estate school. So it was until I hired a coach that was looking at my blind spots, that's when I started showing up and living by the numbers. And it was a ritual for me. I got a lot of clarity from the numbers instead of being concerned, oh, I'm going to have a bad year next year or this quarter's looking slow. I knew exactly where I was at all times. And I was able to even look forward and shift my activities or practices to align with my business goal. So I knew to make X, I needed to do X every day.
All right, so that clarity has got to be empowering, I imagine, that you aren't nervous about where the next commission check's going to come from. You just go, all right, these are my top sources. Hey, maybe I'm not getting the return I thought I'd get right now, so I know I need to double down here or change this here. It's just got to bring some freedom and clarity to the business.
So much. Before I was always anxious or worried about, am I going to make this or hit my goal this year? Now it's up to me. And I know, if this result is lower than it should be, or I'm behind on my target for this quarter, I can really adapt quickly and shift and skate towards the puck. That's how I look at it now. And there's so much power and clarity in these numbers. And it's easier to scale once you know what's actually working.
Will, you're pretty cool. I like you. So let's go through the things that you're tracking, and we're putting together kind of a list of best practices so that at least our Inspire Collective members, you'll have access to everything Will's doing. But Will, tell us a little bit about what specifically you're tracking and what that allows you to know.
Yeah. So on the buyer side, if you want to start there, I'm tracking everything from A, where did the lead come from? What did we talk about on the initial intake call? Did I sign a buyer representation agreement? We know that they are set up on a search and we are touching base on them. I have all my notes from those conversations. And then we're also tracking where the lead came from, who got the insurance business, who is the lender, who is the title company. Did we ask for their birthday? Do we have their home address? Are they set up? We are tracking every single detail, which also leads to more referrals. And we're actually able to hold our vendors accountable because I know I sent this lender 15 pieces of business this year. It's super simple. I can show them on my spreadsheet. Here it is. And then also for my side, I see my average compensation amount to make sure I'm having the right conversations and average time I've even worked with buyers so I can nail down the pre-appointment and appointment script on that side.
All right, let's time out real quick because you gave a whole bunch of stuff that I imagine most people are going, hold on, wait a minute. I'm not even tracking half that. Has that been everything you've tracked since you started tracking, or was this something that grew over time?
Great question. It grew over time. And I saw holes in the typical tracking method people have of just where did the business come from and what was the price and what did you make, to thinking, I'm sending this person a lot of business, this lender, and I'm not really getting much back. Why don't I start actually tracking so I could see on a chart who's getting what business? And then also on the listing side, I was able to tell sellers, I've worked with this many buyers this year. This percent was cash. This percent was out of state, all those things, which really just gave me more power to make more money in real estate.
Okay, so I love that because for those of you watching who are going, that's a lot. This is not what Will tracked at first. I imagine you were probably contact to an appointment to schedule to an appointment kept, and so on and so forth. Very basic. But then you wanted to get even more information. And one thing you mentioned was you want to know who's doing the insurance, who's doing the mortgage, maybe even who did the inspection, who did the home warranty. Like, where is your business going? Because you said at the very beginning you want to turn 5 deals into 6 deals. So tell me about your process to take that information and turn it into referrals.
Yeah. So the call I had before this was my lender who actually had a listing lead for me. And it's because I hold these vendors accountable. And I just tell them, I say, John Doe, it was really great to work with you. I can't believe this is our 10th or 11th deal we've done this year. I have a two-way relationship with all my vendors, and I know that I can count on you to send me a referral. And the basic math I found early on with my coach was for every 5 pieces of business I send, I expect 1 in return. So I literally just tell them that and I set the expectation, to be working with you, I expect every 5 deals, I'll get 1 back and I'll take great care of them. And you know that. And magically, when you start asking for the business, they show up. I remember I never got a deal from my insurance person until I took bold and I asked. And then magically, I set 2 listing appointments off that insurance provider. So it's really using that information. And then also at the end of the year, planning for next year. Take them out for coffee, ask them what their business goals are. And then they're going to ask me what mine are. And they're also going to ask, how can I support you? And it's going to be clear. Maybe it's sponsoring an event. Maybe it's doing a podcast with me. Whatever it is, I know my numbers so well that I share them with them and business comes from it.
Yeah, it's absolutely great, super smart, and I'm glad it's working. I'm curious about what you're noticing with the business. You've chosen to go full time in the toughest market in, I don't know, almost 20 years, about 15 years, and yet it's working for you. That might actually be a gift that you don't have all the benefit of what it was like to work in a crazy hot market. But I'm curious about what you've noticed with conversion rate. Are you seeing it takes more appointments to get the same number of listings? Is it more conversations to get the same number of buyers in the pipeline? What have you noticed since you've been tracking?
Yeah, it's the gift of the shift. I've noticed like it's double the activity for the same result straight out of the shift book. We're having to increase what we're doing, and our conversion has to get better every single day. So I know, thankfully, my conversion is actually maintained the same even from pre pandemic, where I know the same amount of contacts I make will result in the same amount of appointments. I just need to make the right contacts. So now I'm very strategic instead of just calling random people, very focused on I might not make 20 contacts in a day. I might make four, but those four will result in an appointment, and I'm very strategic with that. I don't like wasting time. I like having a high hourly rate. And I've also learned through tracking, I've made more money with the same volume by really focusing on my value proposition and nailing that down and how I get paid.
Tell me how you're getting purposeful about who to talk to.
Figuring out who's going to have the best result. So instead of just trying to do the contacts game, I think of my focus, which is I want to work with influencers. So I might not have the largest database, but I have 50 people that have 500 people in their database. So that's what I focus on is the top 20% out of the database, working with those influencers, taking really great care of their referrals and making sure they know the work I'm doing. And the results come from that. So I have a couple clients, I'd say 5 clients who've sent me over 10 pieces of business each in the last year.
That's really good. And you said you're getting purposeful about your conversations. I imagine you're practicing and role playing, you're doing something to make sure you're staying out in front. What advice would you give around that?
Yeah, the growth I saw in my business when I just spent 30 minutes every single day focusing on the major objections I was seeing and conversations, my income went up drastically. It was actually the best return on investment I've ever had in real estate was just practicing with myself and a conversation partner instead of my clients and fumbling. I found a lot of agents were kind of just getting kind of lazy and lackadaisical. And when I showed up, I knew exactly what to say, when to say it, and was able to overcome any objections that came up. It was like a sport for me. I loved overcoming the objections and I loved practicing because I knew the time I spend practicing, I'm just going to make more money.
All right, so it's accountability. That's why you started tracking. You're using a maps coach for that, and people could use whoever they want. So accountability around the tracking, paying attention to the data and figuring out what it's telling you so you know where to spend your lead gen time. Now we're into shift where it says figure out your top sources and double down on those. You're practicing and role playing your scripts and conversations for a half hour every single day. You say that's your absolute best return on investment. Most agents won't do it. And what happens is you end up sounding kind of goofy in front of a potential client instead of sounding goofy with the person sitting next to you in the office. And that's a much better return. And you're just getting more purposeful about who you're talking to and what you're talking about. This all, Will, it sounds like a pink fluffy unicorn dancing on a rainbow. It can't all be perfect though. So tell me, where have you struggled? Where have you made a mistake? Where can someone learn from, some issue you had so that they don't have it too?
Yeah, the biggest mistake I've made was not getting accountable sooner. So kind of just treating this like a flexible, hobby and not a job. The minute I got accountable, I had a script partner, I had the coach that was holding my feet to the fire. The business literally went from 200,000 to over 1 million, and this year I'll gross over 1.2 million dollars. It's not just about the money, but for me, accountability was really needed because I didn't know what was best for me. I needed somebody that had walked the path before, so I wasn't just wasting time. So my whole thing is plug in sooner. I mean, your Facebook group's a great resource, your mastermind. Just get involved sooner and treat this like a job, not a hobby. Because I think about the money I lost, years ago from not treating this like a full-time gig.
I look at it as money you spent for training, right? So you spent money for training in that time, and now you want to get a return on that investment and it's paying off. Your final thought for someone that's going, all right, I get it. I need to start paying attention, and yet they're really not paying attention to the business. What's the final thought you'd share with them?
Yeah, the mental image I had for every appointment I lost was I took my average commission, which was $18,000. I just pictured throwing $18,000 in the trash. Every appointment or opportunity I lost because it was on me. It wasn't on the seller for not wanting to work with me. It's because I didn't convey the value proposition correctly and I wasn't able to overcome their objection. And when people put up objections, we need to work with them and work through them as sales professionals to get them to do what's best for themselves and their family. So that's how I looked at it. Was I had that mental image of just throwing money away, and I could fix that. I just had to do the work.
Will, you're pretty great. Thank you for spending some time with us to walk through it. Congratulations on what you have built and what you are building. And I wish you great success. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.